and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Taylor and Jesse Hughes, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Jesse is known for Eagles of Death Metal, but he's also known for Boots Electric, which is actually I don't know which album I actually came across first. I think I came across all that music all in the same period of time. It's been so long now. I know my
Oh,
kids love that
awesome.
album. My kid Boots the Boots album. My kids loved it. We played it a lot when it first came out too. When they were younger. A lot of good dance.
It's funny because my son was in the studio a lot with me when I was recording it. So he was little, and I would constantly go, "What do you think about this?" So it's pretty funny that kids would like it.
Well, it's got a good dance to it, and it's out. And I like it as an adult because I like. I mean, we're close to the same age, and I like a lot of your influence. I know you like Parliament, and so your influence is a lot more, like they say old school, but it is different. And I feel it in the music. I can hear even some of your the vocals harken back to like the acapella and the 40s, 50s, and 60s sometimes, and the choruses. There's a lot of different, nice influences that you kind of go deep, and it
Yeah,
shows without just being pop music.
I'm stealing from everybody, as my mom would say.
Well, I think only one thing was invented once, and everybody just took from it and just kind of kept building on it.
That's exactly what I think. There's nothing new under the sun.
No, I think between the Beatles and Zappa, I think every song was already written. Now everyone else is just improvising.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's an dude. That's an amazing statement. Between the Beatles, I'm going to take that from you, dude. That's awesome.
So it's yours. It's yours. Put it on a shirt. Because those are some of my
That's
biggest.
going to be on a shirt, my friend. You watch. I will be wearing it by tomorrow.
You make that on a shirt. You better send me a copy.
It's
I'm a
done.
huge fan of both. I'm a huge fan of both artists for their songwriting. I'm a big fan of songwriting. So it's not like just because of popularity. I love the deepness of an artist, and I think it's really great. And what I really love about you as an artist is you do so much different music like you wouldn't expect. Like you think, your first couple albums were like I think when I first also heard you was like the desert rock albums like three and
Yeah,
four.
the Desert Sessions. That's the very
Yeah,
first appearance of Eagles of Death Metal.
which is fantastic. And so you'd think that it had this really kind of fuzz rock, everything was something else. But your influences, you do so much music that you have no rules, which is fantastic for a music lover.
Right. I've always, we all have heroes. We all have people that we model ourselves on. And mine's always been Tom Waits. And in
Mhm.
that sense, it's whatever I do, I want it to be legitimate. That's how I look at what Tom Waits does. Whatever he does, he will pick anything from the songbook of the world. He just, when he does it, it's legit. And
Well,
that's always how I've approached it. Other than that, I love music in general. And I think it's our obligation as recording artists, especially to challenge ourselves in corny things like the corniest things. Challenge ourselves, grow, expand, and also stay true. And those are interesting things to have to stay true to something while also at the same time expanding it. That's a challenge.
what is your background for like? I know because it feels like you just kind of came out into Eagles. Like, what were you doing prior? And I know you've been involved with Josh for a very long time, but what was your other musical projects you were doing prior to that?
I actually had zero interest in being in a band, and I had only been playing guitar for about 6 months when we made our first record.
Really? Wow.
And I was going through a divorce that was epic in my life, and I was just in a weird place. And my mother was worried about me, so she called my best friend Joshua to come check on me. He heard "I Only Want You." He drove me to Hollywood in my mother's car, and here I am.
That's insane.
It's
Clearly,
it's
you
very
have
much it's like a
inside of you.
combination of Cinderella and the Sword and Stone.
It is, except without the fancy clothes.
Yeah, no fancy clothes and no mice turning into anything, which I was a little disappointed in.
Well, you weren't doing the right drugs at that time,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. If I had done the right drugs, those mice would have been transformed into a carrot.
But on a serious note, it's incredible. Obviously, you had a wellspring of creativity because, like, you can't be just there's super talented people that no one's ever going to know about, and there's people that aren't talented that can still perform. But when you can do both together and you have the songs, that's kind of like a triple threat, and that's where you get the perfect storm together. You know,
I mean, in a way, there was an inevitability. I actually worked in politics, and I was a journalist. I was a political journalist. That's what I wanted to do. And I came home one day and my ex-wife was in bed with another woman, and it just blew me away. You know, I did something very typical. If this is what I get for serving you, God, then fuck it. Pardon my language. That's what I did. And it was like, in reality, everything that I'd ever done in my life had prepared me for something that I had no intention of doing, but it was where I was meant.
That's that's quite a thing to have. That's a huge thing to do. I'm not making light of it. That's like a huge
It,
emotional betrayal. It's not even about like the world about physical. It's literally just an emotional betrayal, which is harder than anything.
it
So
absolutely was the hardest thing. I lost my virginity to my ex-wife. I'm a devout, I'm a very devout a Catholic and a devout Christian. So at the time that it happened, it was devastating to me. And and what ensued was a horrendous custody battle that lasted over the course of the first two records.
that sucks. That is the worst to
But
go
it did
through.
give me some insight. I'm always a great believer in whatever's going to happen to you, you're able to handle it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening to you. And I never let the bad guys win. I'll
Well,
shake my dick and keep dancing. That's kind of my rule. Just it's kind of like a bastardization of Finding Nemo. Instead of just keep swimming, just keep shaking your dick.
I usually just keep swimming. I'm a little more family friendly, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Know your audience, I guess. For me, I feel like
That's
kids.
it. That's it. That's it. Well, I censor myself and I say, just keep swimming.
Well, the thing is, it's interesting because you say you know you've gone through a lot, and being devout Catholic. I mean, clearly you've challenged the boundaries of what's right and wrong for being Catholic. I mean, you really dance on it. You know, whether it be having fun with the video, but also with politics. I mean, the world's so different now. It's especially for somebody focused in that, it must be making you kind of nuts because it's so everywhere. Like everyone's just so angry. There's no you used to be able to have a firm ground and say, I'm here and I'm here. Now, people that like I would have thought that would have been this way. I'm like, I don't understand what people are thinking anymore. Like everybody is just angry.
There's a distortion in logical thinking and in critical thinking. There's and it only takes a moment where we can be led into something, but uh, we, I think, as an artistic community, under the belief that we were doing the right thing, incidentally became co-opted as the propaganda arm of the government, and it disgusts me in a lot of ways. It used to be us against the world, and now it's. I think artists should have a little D or an R in front of their name.
Or G, Green Party. You're not affiliated with either of them.
Yeah,
At least you're not affiliated with any of them. You know.
I I've never been affiliated with them, but because of some of my particular individual beliefs, I often get grouped into shit. But I just want my money, and I don't want anyone to tell me what to do.
I vote for humans. I vote for the best for everybody to have the most rights. I think that's how I
Absolutely,
feel.
I look at every individual, and that's how I vote.
Yeah.
For every situation, situational, and I look at each situation, and rock and roll is supposed to kind of be exempt from that. It's kind of a dirty trick to say, come in and let's dance. And then as soon as somebody comes to your show and you're hitting them over the head who to vote for, that's kind of a
Right.
dirty, rotten trick.
It is. And that's why it's kind of just touching on for me. I was looking for a deep political answer because I don't do that in the show. The show's more about music and fun. Take a break
It's
from all
all
that.
it's
But
about for me.
right. So to me, I just thought it interesting as because you were doing it full time and the world's changed. And it was an interesting thing with musicians do take that platform and you are a musician. So it kind of like comes back around at you. So
Working in politics prepared me perfectly for showbiz.
you'll get more showbiz than that.
Perfectly. There's nothing more political than showbiz. There's nothing, and I don't mean in terms of right or left. I mean within itself. It in and of itself is a perfectly political world. Everything's about you don't want to make someone angry if in case they can open or close the door. You never know who you're talking to. These sorts of things. You can always tell when a person who's famous is treating someone like crap until someone goes, oh, they're so and so, and then oh, now you're a human because you've been introduced properly. That's the
Exactly.
kind of thing that To me, if you've come to my show, you're the most important person in my whole life. If you're a fan of my music, you're the most important person in my whole life. And the last thing I would ever want to do is crap on you.
I think it's important though. I think a lot of artists maybe weren't always like that, but I think since I've been doing the show and I started during COVID, like I didn't realize how many people were doing these shows. I would have probably done it if I realized there were so many, but I've done well. And the point is,
I
it was
love yours.
remote.
I got to be honest with you. I'm enjoying this conversation immensely already, and that's awesome. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think I've talked to a lot of different artists, and I think one thing I've learned, and I think it's important for people. And the point is, people need to respect artists in a way. And most of the artists I talk to are not like, oh, I'm getting get me dizzy here. Um,
Yeah.
with your camera work, I feel like we're in a Blair Witch project. I think that what's important is a little tube there. That's kind of a fun thing. Um, the humanize people, and I said it. It doesn't matter who you are, even if you don't enjoy someone's music, you should know who they are as a person and respect them and get past that world of I hate this artist because I don't like that kind of music. You know, it's not fair to do
Right.
that. I think it's a human, and if you see an artist out in public, let them be. They're still a job. They still have kids. Don't bother them if they're doing certain things. If an artist comes to town, you want to support them. You want to support the merch. I talk a lot about the expenses that an artist pays. So if they're coming around, you got to support them. I talk about how much the cost of the shirts, the travel, and the visas. So people just can't be like, oh, I'll come next time. You know, I think the reality of what an artist goes through is important, and I think the
Absolutely.
fans,
And there's also a reality to the investment into making quality music. There's an
mhm,
investment there of time and of effort. You have to. It's almost like a doctor. You kind of have to be well read. You have to keep up on your reading.
yeah,
You have to keep up on your listening. You have to keep up on your knowledge of the new tech or the technology. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's how I look at it. And I listen to music so much. I listen to music incessantly so that I can constantly be current. That takes a lot of time and investment. I mean, I'm sure we all could imagine that Frank Zappa was doing weird shit with music all the time, expanding his understanding.
yep.
And for that, we're grateful. The same way I'm sure David Blaine prepares for his show when he's doing magic.
It takes a lot of work. It does. I do a side one of my side things that started with this. Actually, show started actually as a concept at a Dweezil Zappa concert. Dweezil's doing Frank Zappa stuff as in line. And sorry if people have heard me say this before, but I'm in line getting a shirt, and people are complaining about the price of the shirts. I went to music school and have a degree, whatever. I know there's more to it, and they're complaining about the price of it. What I'm thinking, there's so much more to it. It's not that. It's not the cost. So I thought I'm going to talk to Dweezil. I'm going to reach out to him and see if I can get something going. And I
I can connect you to Dweezil because he's a great and wonderful person, and what he's had to go through to play his father's music is
yeah,
insane.
I appreciate it. Actually, I have a show with him. I'm actually on his website. If you go on his
Oh, dude,
website,
I love. Let me tell you right now, Dweezil does not get talked enough about. He is
I agree.
he is not celebrated as nearly as much as he should be constantly. He is humble to a degree that's almost impossible to imagine considering where he comes from. And he has maintained his virtuosity to such a level that we're lucky.
He is. I will tell you. We talk about so on his channel. If you go to his website, um, we do a breakdown of his albums. We talk about how the albums came about, the songs, the players. Each album we do a breakdown of. Super fun. We're on a little bit of a break right now because we're working on stuff. We're gonna do some more albums and stuff.
I
But
love that. That's
he's so it's so great. They're fun things. And he talks the facts, and in fact he can remember stuff so far back, and his details are like to do Zappa
dude.
stuff.
His mind is a trap, dude. That nothing escapes. It's almost like it has an energy beam that locks in and pulls everything in.
And everything's a story with him. I mean, I've Zappa to C5, Eddie Van Halen stories to, how he got into this thing, how he relearned playing guitar. He was like one of the best at guitar, and then he took a year off to just relearn guitar differently to play his dad's music. Like that's insane, you know.
It's insane. Let me tell you something about him. A story I have with him. Right after Paris, we were at Mates, And when I say right after Paris, I mean right after the attack in Paris in the background. We
Yeah.
were rehearsing at Mates, getting ready for the tour, and he was rehearsing there. And he came out. He knew exactly what had gone on. He didn't say anything about it, but he just came up and he goes, "You're a Zappa fan. What would you like to hear?" And I went, "You think you could do the theme to Burt Weenie Sandwich?" And I
What a
mean,
great
I'll
call.
even almost get emotional because it was such a sweet and incredibly wonderful gesture. And he just went, "Let me see what I can do." And he went in and they played theme from Burt Weenie Sandwich. And I can't tell you what's the word I'm looking for here? What a invigorating and reinvigorating sensation it was to have someone as great as that man performing privately my favorite Zappa song,
Well,
just to cheer me up.
I can tell you this. I've never shared something here. I don't think when I started the show, I hadn't spoken to many artists. We just started it, and we couldn't do an episode. I was getting my feet wet doing this. It was a couple of years back now, and I'm like, I can't do a show. I texted him and I said, my mother had just died of COVID,
Oh
and
my God.
he um he's, oh my God, sorry, and then that was it. I mean, because we didn't talk a little bit. Like the first time he gave me his number, and I called him. I'm like, "Hey, Dweezil, it was weird hearing him on the phone." I'm like, "Yeah, it was just threw me off." And then we did a few shows, like just talking and Zoom, so it wasn't like a huge thing relationship. But he called me shortly after. He said, "Hey, Sean, me and Megan, I just want to check in and see how you're doing." Like, anyone knows Dweezil how busy he is. He's
That's
in like
quality.
50 projects. I mean, he's at 50 million projects. He's so busy. He's spread so thin. So for him to take the time and go, "Hey, we were just thinking about you," a couple of days later, how you doing? You know, that's the same thing you got. I mean, he just cares.
And to think that anyone would prevent him from playing his father's songs
No,
is
I
mind
agree.
numbing to me.
It was because yeah, on so many levels it does because it helps
It
even
blows me away. It's
it
so
helps the
self
catalog too,
defeating
though.
to
You know, even if they
yeah.
don't want to, he's helping make money with the catalog for the other people. Like so,
That's
it doesn't.
that's what I'm saying. He's literally keeping the Zappa name alive by actually being a continuing virtuosic guitarist. So he's literally maintaining the standard and quality and promoting it. And they don't even, I mean, it blows my mind. I mean, that's obviously some sort of sibling shit that we can't understand,
No,
but I
it's
don't
at a
like it
decent
and I
part.
don't have to.
I don't know what they're gonna do at this point. I know, and I've talked to a lot of different Zappa alumni at this point on my show, different musicians, but I always kind of stay away from that because it's a very sticky situation.
Okay, you
But
want
I
to hear
know,
something I've heard multiple
yeah,
times about Zappa? Let me tell you my little phenomenal like crazy stuff that you hear here in LA in the inside world. But this comes from very reputable people,
is this safe
and
to share online or is this edited out?
yeah, it's safe because
Okay.
it's firmly within the conspiracy theory situation. So no, who's going to? However, when I got to tour the CIA headquarters at Langley when we were invited, I saw a star on the wall that said Zappa. I don't know if it's Frank. I'm just saying I saw the star, but I've been told by multiple people that Frank Zappa was probably the most successful CIA field agent that the agency ever had, and that that was always what he was about. And in a way, I can see it, especially considering the fact that his father-in-law was head of the NSA in 1970. So that would make him a potential legacy member. So I've heard this so many times from so many different older people that of course he would be recruited because who he could make fun of the Beatles in real time. I mean, you could imagine the connections and the asset you would have in him. But it does make sense. And he was close friends with Jacques Cousteau, who we now know was a CIA agent. So rock and roll CIA agency, somebody's got to make that movie.
The only thing I would say first off is I don't know how he'd have the time because the amount of time he was in the studio just making music, how he could do anything else on any level, you know?
Well, if that is your mission, if that was your mission, then you would only make music. And after Paris, the only reason it would even lend any credence to this is because I know that some of the departments that contacted us after Paris, especially once I was put on an ISIS death list,
Yeah.
the agencies and the groups that contacted us and wanted to use us as bait, wanted to use us as lures, wanted to all kinds of things. I started to see that they had these like outreach programs within the government, and from there, I can actually see some potential, especially because I've heard it from family members,
Yeah, I'm not even denying it. I
not
don't even
Dweezil.
know. No,
But I haven't heard it from Dweezil, but I will tell you it's one of the more fascinating, because if anyone is like a super agent superhero in my mind who would have the genius to do it, it would be Frank Zappa. I can almost see him like taking everyday store chemicals, putting it together, and then creating something that becomes an amplifier. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I
yeah,
could actually almost see that. And I almost want to believe that.
it would be if anybody could do it, it could be him. I don't know. From what I know about his personality, I would think no. But then again, I've learned the older I get, the more I don't know. You
He
know,
ran for president. He was the first person to literally put the First Amendment on a record.
that would have been awesome.
And
That
he
would have been
did that
awesome.
on one of his first records. He placed the
Yep.
First Amendment, and some of his warnings to us about what
Yep.
would happen in censorship, especially when the warning label was coming out, were prophetic.
Oh yeah. If you have his vinyl, I have a lot of vinyl of his, especially the early stuff. You open it up, it's all there. I mean, the blueprint of what was happening and going to happen, he knew.
And profoundly insightful critiques of what was happening at the time.
Absolutely.
Profoundly insightful critiques of what was happening at the time. I have a lot. I think everything that Mothers of Invention ever released on vinyl, and I have most everything Frank Zappa released. I'm a Beefheart Zappa fanatic. When I was growing up in the desert, you could say that the kings of our world were Frank Zappa and anything on SST.
I can see that. I can see that. What about Thingfish?
Because
I
I'm a
said this to
Minuteman
Dweezil.
fanatic.
Oh, well, Minutemen, yeah, that's another great band. Um, so to that point, actually, I said one time, I said Dweezil, I said, what is the roughest album? Like, it's like the not album. And I think that what always surprises me the most is when people say, because I told him, I saad, I actually got to Zappa through him, through one of his albums. I knew of Frank,
Oh,
but I
that's
didn't
awesome.
know. So I heard Dweezil's album, and I said, I know about Frank, and then I started listening to Frank, and so kind of reverse engineered into it. So it makes sense that I was with Dweezil, and we've done all this stuff now. He's worked together. Um, but he says the funniest thing is always the strangest thing that comes up is when people say Thingfish is the album that got them into Zappa. That was their first Zappa album, and I'm like, what an album! Like, right? Can you imagine that being your first album of Zappa? Is Thingfish,
Yeah, that's
right?
epic. That's
It's kind of abrasive,
what a
especially
way
if
to
you're not
start. You know what I mean?
like like because even he's like I'd like to know a little bit more about them. Like, what else have you got into your collection that you're listening to that's the album that gets you into Zappa? Like, what else is going on there? Type of thing, you know?
Yeah, for real, dude. What else? Like, that's like starting with abstract algebra.
Right. I mean, it's the most insane album to get into for him, but yeah, it's pretty funny. So,
What
and
do you
you,
have a favorite Zappa?
oh, do I? I don't. I like everything. I go back and forth. But I think the one that holds the true, and I actually just posted a short on this one actually up online today, the clip of one of the interviews from when Dweezil we did is Billy the Mountain because it's epic. It's a great
Yep.
story. There's a story. There's an arc to it. There's some humor. There's a lot of musicianship. The fact that it always changed and it kept it live was fantastic. And also, my kids. It was like the only song I could play for my kids.
Right,
It's
right, 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 right.
that didn't give me an aneurysm or get me in trouble with my wife. So, and to
Yeah, it
this
didn't
day,
get
my
you in
kids,
trouble. Yeah, absolutely.
right, and my kids still know it to this day. My daughter knows all the words of that song. Her and a friend used to sing it all the time together. So I think that's probably gonna be my
That talk about being grounded. That's awesome.
yeah. That's what we
Mine's
got.
Burnt Weenie Sandwich. The theme from Burnt Weenie Sandwich is one of my all-time favorite songs, and I'm especially fond of the Flo and Eddie era.
Well, I mean that was great, and you look on paper, you think that wouldn't make sense originally, but it does make sense if you know the band and you know both all the artists. It makes total sense. But if you look on the outside,
Dude,
you're like, Turtles is Zappa. Like it seems like weird on some level on the outside if you don't really get it.
yeah,
Like it's two different types,
the Turtles and Zappa. Uh,
right?
but if you think about it, he was a doo-wop artist in the very beginning.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
And
It makes sense.
the anecdote that I've heard of when he was dying and Captain Beefheart would call him and wouldn't even be able to speak, he would just play their favorite doo-wop songs from when they were kids on the phone. That's one of my favorite and most touching anecdotes. Whether it's true or not, I'm not certain, but I've heard it enough, and it's a beautiful thing that I want to believe. You know.
I'm gonna ask Dweezil if next time we talk about that, if he has any point of reference on that one. You know,
You also tell Dweeza that, as far as I'm concerned, I effing love that man, and I am on his side 100% in almost anything. And he's one of my biggest heroes. In fact, I still have his signature crate.
really, wow, that's
It's one of
you
my
made the.
favorite.
I'm sorry, 'cause you may actually enjoy that and not sell my show, but on his website, because I don't, it's not everywhere else. It's just on his website. We did exclusively to draw people over there. Um, the shows we did, the
Well,
episodes.
I'm going to start following it now because there's not enough of that right now. In
Yeah,
my opinion, in terms of music, we have the dangers of what computerization was threatening is starting to come to pass, and we don't have enough deep thinking when it comes to music.
I agree. And the invention and the layering, and I feel like we're going on track about talking about you, but I think it's important that we talk about what inspires an artist and the fact that some of the stuff that Zappa did, even if you're not a Zappa fan, musically, he always went out and recorded stuff live. And I was talking to Chad Wackerman recently, drummer for like a billion years with Zappa. And I said,
Yeah.
one of the albums he did, I asked him about it. I said, oh, what was it like doing this album with him? And now it's escaped me. He goes, I wasn't in the studio because he just got that recording studio, the mobile one he bought. And I think he bought it from now.
Wally Heider?
No, it's like someone weird, like the Beach Boys or that, some traveling unit he had. And he records everything. He goes, it wasn't like a sit down recording. It was just recorded, and it was one of his albums. He just threw everything together, you know.
Yes.
So that's something a lot of artists could learn. You know, he chopped and added and built right off of it. I mean, so that's a huge creative thing that wasn't going on, you know. And he
He
had
was
fun.
also functional. And in my opinion, Frank Zappa, the things he was doing may not directly have developed it, but it certainly led to inspiring a lot of the home recorders.
It does, and he had fun. And like I said, what was he doing? He told Dweezil, he said Dweezil one time got called downstairs to the studio. His dad played back something. It was like around, like it's like Drowning Witch or something. Like when you know, like the songs, the voices are like really out of pitch and stuff. On the Drowning Witch album, and Return, and he was laughing so hard. He said because my dad was laughing so hard. He was sitting in the console laughing. He just like melted out of the chair laughing so hard at how funny it was that he was doing that in the album. So I mean, he enjoyed what he did. I mean, it was and he had fun with it.
Well, he
Packed it
made
in.
fun of the Beatles in real time. Who could do that and get away with it? You know, we're only in it for the money, lumpy gravy. That is a direct critique of Untouchables at the time,
Yeah,
and and people were happy to have him make fun of them. You know what I mean?
yeah, they were, and I think even the Beatles at the point were starting to tear themselves apart too. They became something they didn't want to become, a parody of
Yeah.
themselves. I think it was good deconstructing all of that music at the time. Um, and I just step back when people don't understand are following along and they can look up deeper. I don't want to get into it. You were Eagles were playing in Paris during the horrific day that I think like 130 people were killed. It was like 2015, and your band was playing, and it actually one of the biggest things happened at the venue, and it was awful. And it's more details people can look it up. We don't need to relive it for you.
I honestly don't mind talking about it because, uh, it might easily be thought to be. You would expect for me to say it was the worst event in my life or the ugliest thing I've ever seen, but I'll be honest with you, to sum it up. In reality, starting from the second the first bullets started being fired, I saw some of the most terribly beautiful things that I could ever see. I saw three people jump in front of bullets for the people they love. That's the greatest demonstration of love there is that you give your life for your friends. And I saw it three times without hesitation at a rock show. There's nothing more beautiful than that. Even though it was at a terrible price, uh, everyone that was there was some of the highest quality of people, especially the ones that were taken from us. So it was the greatest honor of my life was to be able to represent whatever that movement or that whatever that thing was, and everyone that I've known and met from it have enriched my life. I got to see the best of the world. I saw the entire world unite
Yeah.
around this. There's nothing but beauty can be terrible, and you have to make a choice as to what you're going to see for real, in my opinion. And I could have proceeded forward from that day seeing nothing but the worst of the world and never wanting to go back out on stage, but that's going to let the bad guys win, and I don't have it in me to do that. And uh, I don't even know a single one of those monsters' names, and I don't really need to. I know the names of every person that perished, and I know almost the names of everybody that was there that night. And all they are shining examples of the best you can be. So in that respect, I would never, I could never allow myself to be a person that would have difficulty discussing things like this, because it's not a bad thing that I lived, and the people that gave it all and demonstrated such courage and bravery, they don't deserve to have their story secretive just because I don't like surviving.
No, I respect that. I mean, I respect what people. Everyone deals with things differently, and I think it's even more important if you can share it. But I also respect some people just can't cope with things a certain way, and I would never
I have a
try to
fucked up,
someone.
so I have an effed up sense of humor. So I've already gotten into some issues with my best friend Joshua Homme as we've prepared to start recording our new album, because I'm dealing with Paris. But some of the song titles, just to give you an idea, are "Besides That, How Was the Gig?"
Oh,
That's one of the songs I've written because I have to do that. For me personally, I cannot let the bad guys win at all, and I can't let them make anything scary for me. So for me, I have to do these things that at least give me some sort of, even if it's like a sick bit of laughter. Besides that, how was the gig? To me, is a variation on besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? And
yes.
uh, I feel like that's the best way to let these assholes know that they can't beat me.
Well, I think you guys went back and also went back and played there afterwards, which is
Yeah,
very very empowering.
which resulted in a 900,000 euro bounty being placed on my head, which
Wow.
still stands, which to me is hilarious. It's like, why not go a million? If you made it a million, I might help you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're shortchanging me. Oh, you can't go the extra 100 grand? Jeez, man.
Why bounty? I don't get it. I didn't like because you played there?
Because I was declared to be a pagan warlock. The
Really?
complexity of these people. And so ISIS and the Muslim Brotherhood said that I was defying God by continuing to play, and therefore they marked me,
Wow. That's rough.
which is like the ultimate like gonna get me laid situation. Like, these are the ultimate morons list, and I'm on the top of their bad guy list. That's awesome.
Well, actually, I know you said prior, and I've heard you say if somebody, I know one of the quotes you've done actually, it's always kind of funny is if if Hitler hated you, it would be the best because being hated by the worst people is the best for you. So
That's the way I was raised. My grandmother actually, the only time she'd ever really use foul language, she'd say, "Son, you want an asshole to hate you.
so this is
That's what you want."
so this happening to you is just right up your you know
My mom said this in a dark humor sort of way, but of all the people that could have been there at that moment, you'd almost want it to be me.
yeah. Well, I mean,
And
you
that's where
also
I really do see the
you're
hand of God
emotional.
in everything. I see the hand of God in everything. And it almost felt like my whole life and career led up to being prepared to do the right thing in that moment.
The aftermath, in the video, and what's really about you is you're very emotional, and I like that because you'll show your tears, you'll say I love somebody, and you'll show it, and people do that now more and more, but it wasn't always a thing for men to be going like to break down is very stoic, and to me it was very healthy to see that. I was like, yes, it's and then you also once you got past that part, you like most things in comedians, like after 9/11, you deal with the dark humor to get past certain things and handle things, and I can relate to that in my own life. Uh, the worst things I have going on with me, I clearly joke about them all the time because that's just a coping tool.
It's how we face it a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier to turn around and look at it when it's got such big and ugly teeth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. You've been
And I
and
had
well,
support. I had such tremendous. See, that's the mess. That if I mean the word message. That's what I see this as. I don't see it as the horrific thing that these monsters did. I see it as everything that followed. And you got to see demonstrations of friends, friendship between Joshua and I, and you got to see uh, people rallying to our aid. These are the most beautiful things that you could ever ask for. And sometimes I almost feel like maybe we missed the message that was there because in one of the most, reputedly selfish, self-centered, narcissistic worlds there is, which is showbiz, we saw artists of all types doing the best possible thing. And it's something I'm most proud of the artistic community for. And I think because we don't put so much emphasis on sincerity in our business, if
yeah,
we're going to be sincere, we will struggle. Um, I don't think it often gets highlighted, maybe to the point that it should. But it's the only thing that's allowed me to keep playing. I mean, I'm still going and I'm still smiling. And when I approach making music, I don't have anything even remotely close to a nightmare. I don't have trouble sleeping. I don't have echoes of darkness when I hit the stage. I'm very fortunate in that respect that I was able to overcome that. And I could never have done it alone. And I truly did it by little moments, like where someone like Dweezil Zappa extends a simple little kindness for a moment that meant nothing to him, but it meant everything to me.
yeah.
And this is everything that's proceeded forward. And to me, it's a demonstration of the greatness in reality of some of my favorite artists, some of my biggest influences. I got to see them become truly great before my eyes. And I can't possibly be more grateful for that, you know?
Back to say with Dweezil and the same thing about knowing how important things are. I think he does know because you know, when his father died, Eddie Van Halen was the first person to call him over his house. You know what I'm saying? And he
Yeah.
appreciated that. I think
It
it doesn't go.
matters.
It matters. It matters a lot. That people acknowledge it on a different level. You know, um,
And it may not be something that anybody else can see, like with Dweezil, but it matters so much in a
yeah,
way that sometimes even the person who's giving this great gift would never even know. And that again speaks to the humility of someone like Dweezil. He did it for the right reasons. He wasn't doing it for the credit. He did it for the right reasons, did it, and it probably he forgot about it. But as far as this person is concerned, uh, he's a giant hero.
yeah, he's good. So you've had talk about challenges, good and bad, going on, busy. So during COVID, you released, and you've done some online jams and like jam in the van and stuff, different things like that. Uh, you did a covers album. Some of your favorite songs.
Yep.
You're super active on Instagram. I'm gonna put all your links underneath this YouTube show and on the podcast. Everybody knows they can follow you because you're on Instagram. Always doing a lot of things too. Um, Kind of like you're the king of karaoke. You'll do any song and make it
Any
fun.
song.
Any song. So the cover album is out, and actually it's promoted also on the Eagles Death Metal website. Uh, and now you say you're working on a new album with the Eagles too.
Yep.
Where are we at with music? Like, are you going to do any like solo stuff touring or any? You're just focusing on the album? Is there a date? Like,
Absolutely.
where are we
I
at?
have big plans. I have big plans, and I want to work until the second I stop breathing. So I'm always planning for that. And um, one of the greatest joys of my life is to make an Eagles record because it's when I get to spend the most uh, amazing time with my best friend. So I look forward to it. But I've written the entire Eagles album. I've written an entire New Boots Electric album. Um, I already have my next covers album mapped out. I have like 4 or 5 other projects, quote unquote, that I'm working on. And then I have this mission with the up and comers. There's a lot of the youth that I've been fortunate enough to have a an influence in their life. So there's a whole generation of kids coming up whom I love, and I'm starting to produce their albums and give them those first moments of opportunity in our business. I also just produced the new Mickey Avalon album that we're mixing right now,
Oh,
which
really?
was really amazing to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know you've talked about producing, so it's good to see you getting into that too. It's nice to have, both sides of it. I think it helps you as an artist too. I think it'll give you a different perspective when you write songs.
I think in anything you do, like when if you're an actor, if you understand how the camera works a little bit and you sort of have an understanding of what it's like to be a director, then when you're in a situation, you can communicate your ideas more effectively and
Yeah,
receive them more effectively. It having universal experience makes you a more informed and more valuable component to anything you're going to be involved in.
yeah.
And my belief is that when it comes to making music, you check your ego at the door and you walk in and let the music tell you what it wants.
I think it lets you see the forest, through the trees, thing, everything. Like if you don't have an ego, it actually lets you kind of step out and see yourself and go, oh, you know what, maybe this is not what needs to happen or needs to happen. And I didn't see it before because I was all about the artist and the song. And I'm not seeing this, it's like being in a movie, being an actor or a director. You're seeing it from a different view, and you're like, oh, I get it. I get what my part plays, but all the other parts have to be together to make it better, you know. And you may
And
not see
having
that
the
as
ability to see the light at the end of the tunnel or to see what it might become is critical, because I've been in situations where someone's asking me to do something that at the moment for me I can't see exactly. I'm like, I don't know, I can't see where it's going to end up, and it makes me hesitant to be vulnerable in that instant. But when you have a functional understanding or a functional dialogue capability, it's easier to take chances or to entrust yourself because you can kind of see where everyone's going,
yeah,
and
it makes sense.
it makes things flow better. There's less leaps of faith required.
And I think you've had a good situation of playing with somebody who's been a good friend and someone you can trust. I mean, you and Josh are like the best buddy cop movie out there ever. Um, you know, your relationship is fantastic. It's almost inspiring because it's so funny how you guys have worked through so many issues together and been through so many horrible things and just keep going. You know what I mean? Um,
Joshua is constantly reproving this to me, and he is one of the finest individuals I've ever known in my life. He is one of the best. He is the best friend I've ever had in my life, and he is one of the most brilliant artists that our generation has, in my opinion. His natural genius is effortless, and the ego that the man could possess could be phenomenal. But I get a call from him every day checking in on me, and I'm the godfather of his children. The man is an anomaly, if ever there was one.
I think he's fantastic, and I agree. And I love to see the video of you guys together. I love the work you guys do together. I think you guys inspire each other because I think of the relationship, how he cares about you. It's you guys really work well together. Um,
Absolutely. Sometimes
it
I'm writing songs just to see how he'll laugh about it. You
he
know
is
what I
great.
mean?
I
I
mean, yeah.
literally will write songs where I'm like, this is going to make him laugh his ass off when he hears this. And that's the only audience that I've written it for. And I love putting that on display, because a lot of times I'm not necessarily writing songs for people directly. I'm writing something for someone else and I put it on display for the world to see.
Well, I think that's probably on some level it's better because I think you avoid the danger of what the Beatles became at the end, or what
Right.
most bands do before they implode, and you become a parody of yourself because you're trying to do for everybody, and you can't
Well,
please everybody. You have to please yourself, and the fans like you. They can like it or not like it, and still be a fan. You can just like a song
absolutely.
or an album.
And Joshua was always pointing out things like, you know, you have to stay true to yourself. You have to do the right thing by yourself, because 9 times out of 10 it's the sincerity that's actually attracted your fans to you, And the
Mhm.
second you cease being sincere, it may not even necessarily have to be about style, but the second you cease being sincere, you're dead in the water because people will smell that out. People will smell insincerity beyond anything.
Yeah. And, you know,
And
you are the real
no, go
deal,
ahead.
though. No, so you are the real deal, though. I mean, as active as you are on social media, people can tell you are who you are, you know?
You know, the way I look at it, I woke up one morning and I had a mustache and a pair of leather boots and a cape. And it was almost like the gods of rock were like, "You're going to do this. I know what you want to do, but slow down, Sparky, because we got bigger plans for you."
I'm gonna tell you, and this is funny because I'm not like a someone who's a big fan of mustaches, but I'm gonna tell you, there's like 3 or 4 people who have the coolest mustaches. Like your mustache is like my spirit animal. Like there are some people like there's a handful, you know, artists that have mustaches and they're so cool, and then like everyone swears and I'm like, you look kind of like a jerk. Um, and sincerely,
You have to be serious about your mustache. If you have an ironic mustache or if you've seen something, you know, there was a big group, a big movement in our artistic world. And I think you know what I'm talking about when people
yes, I
would be
do.
like, "Look, I'm wearing bell bottoms. Look how stupid it is." That's the
Right.
wrong reason to do something. I've never thought, "Look how stupid it is." I looked at Tom Selleck and went, "Wow, if I look like."
Well, the mustache is also the more confusing. And who is the other guy who's just like Sam? I can't his darn name now. He's in all the military movies. He was a dude in Roadhouse with
Oh,
uh
Sam Elliott.
another mustache guy. You guys are like
Sam
you guys
Elliott,
have a
one of the ultimate mustache guys. He's
right. You
the
guys have a
narrator
club.
in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But that's another good mustache. You know.
And another dude who was talked into shaving his mustache for the Ang Lee version of the Hulk. That was a devastating bad move. Like the
Yeah.
second he was without his mustache, you're like, why?
To be
And
honest, it is.
then for the following Hulk, they had William Hurt grow a mustache. It was like
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
You're right. There should be like a rule book for mustaches. I mean, you know, some people definitely can't do it. Some people can. Uh, I don't know. You either can do it or not. It's a very fine thing, fine line. You know.
It has to
And
be serious. You just have to be sincere about it. Otherwise, you won't wear the mustache. It'll wear you.
yeah, but there's something about yours and the artists, people, and the people actors we've mentioned that it's just it so works. It's so good. Um, but you've always had your own style, your own image, you know, and it's great. You know, I don't think
Thank
anybody
you,
else
folks.
looks more badass like in suspenders. I wouldn't feel cool. I mean, you have your image, you look who you are. It's a confidence you put out. It's not even a look. It's just who you are. It's evolved into more of a look.
You know, a lot of my quote look has a lot to do with me being a smartass, you know, because I was a big nerd, as you would be called in school. I was an overachiever, honor student, and suspenders and things like that are always associated with nerds. So to me, it was like, oh yeah, well, how about this nerd? You know what I mean? That's always been my attitude. I'm just gonna go ahead and wear suspenders, and we'll see what we think.
Well, that's the
Um,
thing. Everything you do is against the grain, but also I'm like it doesn't look like you know what I mean. Urkel.
but
It's
if you
it's
really want to see where I source my look from, it's a combination of Joan Jett's first album and a movie called Over the Edge. And there's a character in Over the Edge called Johnny the Boy. And that's directly where I take my look from because my
over
mom
the
used to
edge.
call me Johnny the Boy.
Over the edge. Who's in that?
It's Matt Dillon's first movie, and it's a teen angst film from
Oh,
1979 about a group of kids who go crazy and take over their school during a parent teacher meeting and start a riot. And it really is. It captures. You're close to the same age as me. If you when you see this movie, it's right up there with River's Edge. It's a classic film, but it nails what it was like to be a kid in my generation.
well, I'm actually I'm 52, so I'm a couple years older. I was born in 70. So
Oh, so yeah, this movie you would have been about
I do
10
remember
years
now.
old when
He's
this
saying I
movie
remember.
came
I don't
out.
remember seeing it. I don't remember seeing it, but I do remember that movie. I was a big Matt Dillon fan because
And
uh,
it was one of the first movies that had a concert, like a focused rock and roll soundtrack of songs that weren't necessarily written for the movie. So it has Jimi Hendrix in it. It's got Cheap Trick. And it starts off with the way the movie starts. It starts off with "Hello, you ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to rock?"
is that the movie where
There's
he
this
meets some
opening.
girl? in like in like
Yeah,
a house, and they played Cheap Trick.
yeah,
Okay, so then
in a party, yeah, at a party,
yep,
and
yep,
then they find a gun, and then they lock all their parents in the school and burn the cars down.
yeah, I
And it's
do.
got some classic lines in it too, dude.
I do remember that scene. So like, okay, so I probably did see it. I mean, at this point, man, my mind is just starting to go. Three kids and a grandkid.
But
My
there's a
mind is starting
character
to
in
go.
that movie named Johnny the Boy, and he doesn't speak, and he rides a skateboard, and he
Yeah,
wears suspenders, and he rolls his jeans up, and he wears monkey boots, and he wears Devo glasses, and his shirts are tucked in, and his sleeves are rolled up. Like I always loved that character when I was a kid. I'm like, this kid, he's got style, and he rolls his t-shirts up like he's got a little sense of like, it's almost like stuck a feather in my cap and called it macaroni.
that is a great reference. I've not heard that. I've never heard that referred to the quote. That's a good one.
Well, Yankee Doodle Dandy's a real thing. It's what it means to be an
Right,
American. It's almost like that ghetto fabulous.
right. It's well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm a little bit of a history person myself and dorky myself. So hearing that reference from somebody is kind of fun to hear, actually, because I don't think I'll ever hear it again from somebody in a conversation like as a real point.
Right. Well, I'm very glad that I got to do that.
Um, so, and it's great that I think what you write and that you're honest yourself and how you look. And I only say it because I think it's not about image, but I appreciate you being. It's more about you just being real who you are and wearing your life and your soul on your sleeve, and whether you're crazy talk about all kinds of personal things or you're just going over the edge, you're having fun with rock and roll, or if you're crying because you're showing your emotion. The lyrics are in your song, whether it's fun, goofy, silly, sad, you know, um, it's you. It's 100% you. You leave nothing behind. And
Well, we have so many examples, and we kind of hit on this earlier, but we have so many examples in our life in general of so many quintessential stories of the pursuit of fame and of show business. So my point is that we know almost every wrong way to do it, and in advance. So with minimal effort, you can pretty much chart out a course going forward where you can, if you want to, not do it the wrong way because so many people have done it already.
yeah,
And
well,
Joshua always says to me, why don't we try to do it the way it's supposed to be done?
yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
love that concept.
he's very. I will say he's one person on my list who I've yet to would love to talk to someday because he's also, along the same thing as an artist who's very honest and it's great for creative wellspring. So, you know,
He
his
inspires. It
work.
doesn't say I just to be in a room watching him inspire other artists is a magic thing. And let me say on the side that after you and I do this, I can almost bet the farm that he will be available to do this too, because we also have this beautiful little competition, and we've been like we have this running joke about doing interviews and things like that. Like, uh, I'm gonna beat you to finding the person where I'm gonna have the best conversation. We have these like little inside jokes, like I'm gonna beat you to that one because we can. It's easy to go sit down for any type of interview where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, but I'm already loving this conversation. I'm already a fan of this. Like, this is my kind of thing in a lot of ways, and I'm so glad that you're doing this, dude, for real. Like, just as
Thank
a
you.
side note, this is awesome. So, I'm going to be petitioning Joshua, like, dude, you want to have a rad conversation about music? This is the place to go
Thank you.
because
That's
that's what
what
he
this
loves
is
to
about.
do.
And that's what it's about. I thank you and please do. But I mean, and that's why you were huge on my list because, and I'm a huge fan of you. And it just happens you guys have a lot in common. But I mean, and I say this a lot. Do you remember? And because you were the same age, remember when we were younger and like in the '70s, we'd be at the show and you're like, and there'd be an actor or be like a TV show. You'd be like, oh, I don't like Falcon Crest or something, whatever, because we were kids and whatever. And then you see a profile on the actor, and also you'd be like,
Right.
oh, you're like, oh, I like that part. You okay? You okay there from in there?
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
um,
When you're actually like, I like this person.
right. But so then you're like, oh, wait, so I can disassociate. So it's not just what they do. Like I can't be like throwing that. This first time you start learning, not knowing the baby with the bathwater term. Like you're like, I can't just make these broad things. And and that's one of the things with the show is to me, it's like it's just talking, and a lot of people say it's casual conversations. I know it's changed. Actually, a lot of people start doing that. It's about talking to an artist just about music, and it's all about the music and the real things in life, and making people aware and saying, you know what, maybe I've read some of these things about this artist or this person because I'm talking to you or whatever. I talked to Russell Hitchcock from Air Supply, and you think,
Oh
oh,
wow.
the cheesiest thing in the world. He comes on, and no one really afterwards does he know he's all tattooed. We're talking about tattoos, and a lot of rockers that were fans of them, but they had to be quiet about it because they wouldn't look cool.
Right. Which I
And you
hate.
talk about these things, right? And you talk about these things, and it's like, and I said, look, I'm a guy. We'll be in the car. I'll be listening to ABBA, and then the next song we put on will be Slayer. You know, there's no such thing as guilty music, and like I'll profile all different artists on the show, and sometimes it's not that big because they're like, who's this? I'm like, I have Arthur Brown on. God of Hellfire. Like you want to have on all different types of artists.
Fire.
Yeah,
I am the god of hellfire. Dude,
if you ever get a
the
chance to see him
crazy
and
world
talk
of
to him,
Arthur Brown.
yeah, he is a great. He's got Zappa stories. He he does he talked about the time he met Jim Morrison. He's been on like two or three times. He's a funny guy. He's great. He's a
You'd
pistol.
have to be him, and he's like he's kind of my favorite type of artist, if you will. And but that was at the time too. When you look back at that time, it was possible for artists like Arthur Brown to exist.
But he still does it now. He
Yeah,
started singing spontaneously in one of our interviews. And he's like in his 70s. I was startled because I wasn't expecting him to belt out this deep voice of his. Like it was like it threw me off to hear it in my headphones. You know,
it's amazing.
it's but
But
it's
we need
once again
more.
it's
We
real.
need new Arthur Browns.
We do, but he's real. And one of the things I kind of hope from this show is people can go, oh, I talked to this person, or they can go in the same week. They'll say, oh, I watched the Air Supply thing, and then I watch Boots or Electric or like all this different like whatever nickname you're going by. Oh, I dig him. Oh, wait, who's this guy? Because it all comes down to a good song. You can't say if you're a real songwriter, like Lost in Love has the perfect build up for a good song. Like you cannot escape whether you like it or not as a songwriter. It's got everything in there as a pop song.
When the song's written well, you almost can't fuck it up. That's what I was trying to demonstrate with our covers album. Specifically, was I'm covering these songs like Careless Whisper, and what I'm trying to show is that Careless Whisper isn't as it seemed like a guilty pleasure, but the song is so damn good,
Yes.
and allow me to try to demonstrate that by seeing if I can suck at it, and you know what I
Well, it's
mean,
not. No,
and
but
and
it's. You're so sincere about it, though. You don't have to have. I mean, you can't be better than the artist that made a good song. Like you can't do a Queen song better than Queen. You can't do George Michael better than George Michael.
nope,
George Michael sounded great doing Queen covers, but it still wasn't Freddie Mercury. Like you can't outdo the artist. And some of the best songwriters, the best songs, the vocals are not what you'd hear on American X Factor, whatever the shows are, because those
yeah,
vocals
absolutely,
are almost a stamp and a footprint of who you are. And that's my favorite artist. Like I love when you say I like artists that have their own voice, literally have their own voice.
yeah, and when they do it, and it's them.
Yeah.
Like if Tom Waits were to do a song, it'd be unavoidably Tom Waits.
Oh God, yeah. It would totally be the strongest thing in the song. Tom Waits is just who he is.
And it wouldn't necessarily be hitting all the right notes, but it would be perfect.
And it would be, and notes are all is that's an opinion piece of notes. Some of the best stuff
I
doesn't
mean,
hit the same
it's
notes.
often said that the Rolling Stones sucked at being Chuck Berry, but they sucked beautifully, and
Well, they
thank
were there.
God they
Yeah,
did.
they took what they did and they took what they learned, just like we're talking about. It's already been done before. They took what they did and they just did what they heard and they put it out what they liked. You
And
know.
sometimes a beautiful attempt, even if it fails technically, is what makes the song perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quote unquote screw ups that you listen to it afterwards and you're like, oh wow, that's cool. I'll leave that in.
Right. I think you and are a perfect example of one thing. Like I said, I would talk about like Air Supply or like any of these bands I've had on, or obviously there's a lot of rockers and a lot of artists in a certain genre. I do lean towards, but I'll have someone on like the oud player Jake Shimabukuro, the well-known ukulele player or something, and he talks about how he was writing songs with Willie Nelson. What an interesting combination. But it goes back to taking your mind out of that thought, and your cover album that you do is something like you. I don't know if I'd expect him to do that. I mean, I follow you, so it doesn't surprise me. But somebody kind of knows some of your stuff and things like Eagles of Death Metal, and then they see that cover album, some of those songs, they're like, oh. So to you, you do kind of the same thing that I like. You kind of take something that it's just a song, and I want to show it to people because there's no such thing as a
Absolutely.
go-to song, and maybe I might introduce you to a brand new something you didn't know.
And when you come to from it, when you come from a place of going, uh, I may not actually be able to be the best at this song, but I love it, and I'll pick it for that reason. And a lot of times, like with "Careless Whisper," I knew going into it, this is going to be a song that some people are not going to expect from me.
Yeah,
And but I feel like we should expect everyone to love good music.
I agree, and I think I don't the phrase "guilty music." It does sound good. Guilty music kind of sounds like naughty, like it's a thing. But the fact that it feels like to me like a dig, like a band's a one hit wonder. I'm like, my God, can you imagine
Yeah,
getting one song that everybody liked that you touched people with, and that's a one hit wonder is like a dig. Oh my God, that should be like one of the compliments. That should be like being knighted if you can write a
dude,
song
you
that
are
touches the souls of the
speaking
world.
my language right now, brother. Because I hate phrases like that, or when you find out things like that Jimi Hendrix was frustrated towards the end of his life because he wasn't happy with how people were receiving his new songs and they would constantly want him to play Foxy Lady, and I'm thinking
Yeah,
like, what a gift, the miraculous privilege to have anyone wanting you to play a song that you've written for a long time would never bother me.
right. And I'm not want to be in their shoes or judge people because I do get bored, but I don't I've never been in that situation. But to me, to know, people come up to me like I listened to this one song and it got me through a hard time. I can tell you where I was for certain emotions, for certain songs, for certain bands that pulled me through certain times. An artist, and man, to have been somebody that as a horrible musician, if I could have written a song and somebody says, "Hey, this song here helped me this day," I would be like, "Oh my God," I could cry. Like it seems like the best thing in the world.
It's the greatest compliment, and the because when I've been when I write Eagles of Death Metal albums, typically they've been to escape awful things. So when someone comes up to me and says, I was going through a divorce and I was listening to this song, I'm thinking in my head, that's exactly what I wrote it to escape. And you've just validated me in a way that I couldn't hope to be validated. So I become immediately grateful for it. I mean, when you look at the covers album, for example, it's Love and Rockets, it's Guns N' Roses, it's the Ramones, it's Cat Stevens, it's Steve Miller. I mean, it goes left and right all over the place. But the thing that keeps it unified is that they're all good songs. And when the greatest compliments I've ever been given are when like Love and Rockets, I'm hanging out with those guys at a bar and they're like, by the way, we love the version you do of So Alive.
Nice,
That is better than winning a Grammy.
yeah, because it's something. It's real. It's like it's flattering and it feels good. And like I can tell you, the handful of songs that I listen to, an album I listen to with my kids. And I had fun time. I could listen to the car because my wife listens to like top 40 or whatever. Not that guy as much, especially the newer stuff. And I listen to it, but not like everyone else. The point is, your album and Billy the Mountain are like probably two of the top five things. I can tell you that I listened to with my kids that had a lot of fun with in the car. You know what I mean?
That's the greatest compliment you can have. That's transgenerational. That's
Yeah,
that's the whole goal.
I could play your whole album and I could enjoy it and feel like and my kids could enjoy it. I mean, the fact that you could entertain kids that were like single digits, and then somebody who's in his 30s and 40s and feel like he's not dumbing down to be able to create an album like that. People actually go back and listen to the album because it's great. Um, it's fun. It just it feels like it, and what's great about that album is, and that's what made me really fall in love with your songwriting is, and a simple. It sounds like you first hear you go, that's a simple song, but then you pull back the engine of it to write a good simple pop song is so hard,
Right.
and that's what people don't
It's
get. So when you do an album of songs like that, I'm like, that is some great brilliance right there. That is hitting the nail on the head every single song. That's how
Well,
affected
there's
me.
so many, as you put it out, one hit wonders, so to speak. But to me, I see it as the grand book of sources. Like,
Yeah,
because there's nothing new under the sun, we do have an ability to look at the great landscape of music and go, well, if I can't do anything truly original, at least I'll do something from the bands that don't suck.
right. And I think, and here's let me give you both sides of the coin. Like I think the one hit wonder thing is to do one good song is great. Now I've talked to some people, and it's probably like more like a pop artist, right? And I don't mean it's like I'm not like name dropping. I'm saying I really just talked to the artist about these songs. And you have somebody like um the safety dance or whatever, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
man, remember that hats.
yep. And so I had him on, and the last quote he had, he loves the song, he's fine with it. And I said, "Do you have anything you want to share with people to end?" He goes, "Tell the people they can still dance if they want to." Best quote ever, ending thing, right?
Amazing, dude.
Right? He goes, "Tell them they can
Amazing.
dance if they want to." Like, I mean, he may have used it before, but I don't care. To me, thank you. Now I talked to Steve Kilby from the church, you know, on the Milky Way Sky. So I mean, that's a big
One
song
of
on
my
the album.
favorite
It,
bands and the first
right.
concert I ever went to on my own.
The reptile. I mean, that whole album, it's just brilliance.
Brilliant.
Um, but he's so prolific between solo albums, whatever. He's written so many albums, and everybody still only talks about. It. He says, he said before I did this interview, I was on, Facebook, going through like probably like a church like fan page or whatever, right? He goes, and somebody says here he'll never do a better album than that album. He goes, how do they know? Like, what I mean,
Yeah.
I've done all these albums. So if you're an artist, it's I think it's frustrating because they don't let them get past that. Also, you know.
And it's a weird thing for a fan to say. It's something I personally never say. I will try to resist saying something like they'll never make a better record, because what I'm really saying is I'll never accept anything else. And that's a
Well,
choice, and that's a limit. That's self-limiting.
well, okay. I'm a super music fan. That's why we can really go deep. But let's say I think when you got into music when you were younger, right? And you really felt it hit you the most is when you're younger and you're in your teens and before and like up until how like college age for people in the 20s, 24. You don't have to be in college, you could be working and career stuff, whatever you're doing. Those are the most emotional times in your life, right? And
Right.
then a lot of people either get married or divorced, or jobs and careers. You don't have that money. You're having kids. There's a time where you don't have as much energy for music for most people. And now they're
Right.
back at our age again, literally, with this disposable income, and they're back again. And I think that's why rock has had a resurgence, and it was a dead zone. But I think
Right.
music hits people, and they're like, well, I think when I say that, it'll never get any better because you are at an emotional point, and you were the most open for the music at that point. I can tell you, Steve Kilby
Yeah.
and those church albums, really, really good. Those new ones, he's just as good. So I think
Yeah. Absolutely.
where you're at when you hear the music. I listen to a lot of new music from my artists. I support the artists doing it. I support them if they don't want to do it too. Do what you want. You know.
Yeah.
I'm
The church just played. I just saw them last week. It was epic.
see, and they have so many good songs now. But
Yeah, dude,
the
they
world's
have the
different.
whole set was killer. And even though everyone was like, obviously waiting for Milky Way and shit like that, still the whole show, whether they realized it or not, they were enjoying it while they waited for that song, because every fucking song that they played was quality.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing is with the churches, and I think the church is similar, not sounding, but in a way, like U2. The riffs
Absolutely. Yeah, no, no,
are are
definitely
are like are
similar
like
family.
are like ambient in a way that that they hold a melody together, but they're obviously in time and they're brilliant, whatever. But they float in a way where they overlap the lyrics, the melody, but it's not a certain structure where it's like 2/4, 2/4. It's different. And it all holds together, and then you're like, play that riff. You're like, I can't really play a riff from the song. I can do the melody, I can do the chords, but you're not
Right.
doing the song. You know what I mean? Because of the guitars are a part of the song and not just a riff.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely, dude.
and that's why you don't hear like a lot of bands being like, certain cover bands. You can't do that. You can't cover certain artists.
No, you can't. You simply you can't. There will be no way of doing it.
Um,
There's certain bands that I personally don't think I can cover, that I'll never be able to cover, and but I'm still going to try, by God. And in the process of failing, I might learn something about myself that's incredible. You know what I mean?
well, songwriting, I can tell you, like I am singularly, I probably talked to some of the best guitarists in the world. So they've on their end got to talk to one of the worst guitar players in the world. So we've had the whole spectrum.
Right,
But my
right, right,
point is,
right,
as the worst guitar player, I love guitar. I would never play on stage, and I'll play, but I'll learn a song that I think that may have been really boring, and then you play it, and you think about how the song's written. You're like, holy crap, this is a good song.
right,
I
right,
get why
right.
it's popular because these are some brilliant chords. These some notes are great, but when you hear it on the radio, you're like, oh, it's music in the background.
Yeah, it's
You
minimal.
discover it. Yeah, it's incredible.
Sometimes things take a deeper that you have to kind of, as a fan, I feel like there's different types of fans, and there's fans who are less and more thoughtful than other fans, and sometimes it you have to kind of scratch below the surface as a listener to
Yeah,
to hear everything, and that's kind of the interesting nature of the fanship of rock and roll, of music in general. There's the peripheral listener, there's the ones who will have it as background music. There are those types of people that really, they only like to play the radio, they don't like to play songs. And then there's people who will sit down and listen to it, or take a deeper listen later, or repeat something so they can hear a phrase. For me, when I'm listening to songs, I will eventually get so obsessed with something that I'll start focusing on a single drum fill that, to me, I'm like, that's amazing. Just this one drum fill. Like, if you're listening to like a Space Truckin' by Deep Purple, that third da 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 blah blah, it's so badass. Just that
yeah.
one little moment. And when I'm listening to a song like that in the company of other artists, if you're paying attention, you'll notice as that point starts to come in the song that you'll notice everyone in the room is doing the, but it, like, you realize that it didn't just speak to you if you were
It's
willing to listen.
and that's the thing. And those are two bands. Actually, I can tell you, I can say people that love really good drumming. You just peel back. People go back and listen to early Deep Purple, all Deep Purple, but innovative Deep Purple. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, and Jethro Tull. There was some
yeah.
drumming on
Well,
those albums that are fantastic that nobody's ever kind of said. I mean, well, yes, maybe I have talked to them about that, but most guys have not gotten the full credit for that drumming like that.
no, and with Jethro Tull, that you bring that up, it's fascinating too that Tony Iommi was the guitarist for that band,
I know.
and he performed on Rock and Roll Circus, and he would quit that week to start Black Sabbath. When you start to consider it on those terms, you see that there's a complexity in the songwriting that is going to branch out and become other genres of music.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorite things, is when you see the immediate lineage of how music, it spirals out exponentially. It doesn't just influence people in a direct, like, lineage path. It goes exponentially. These things can have, like, there's an old phrase that only 200 people bought the first Velvet Underground album, but everybody that bought it started an amazing band.
that's a good one. It's funny. Like I don't think even knowing as much about music as I did, that I realized how many people and how much it overlaps until I did this show. You know,
Right.
I'm talking to Bill
So you
Buford.
start
Next, thing you
talking to
know,
people.
I'm talking to this person, and there's certain artists that are always a connecting line. And you know who's a connecting line a lot? Alan Holdsworth. Either played with him or been influenced with him on guitar. Alan
Wow.
Holdsworth. I hear that a lot. I've heard some great Alan Holdsworth stories. Of course, Dweezil Zappa had one of the best Alan Holdsworth stories. He says they were doing Valentine's Day. He goes, our shows are not known to be a lot of romantic. A lot of women don't come to the date shows. It was Valentine's Day. A
Yeah.
lot of women came with dates. So we thought we'd do Magic Crazy song. She's like the wind as a thing. He goes, but what happened is
Right.
Alan Holdsworth was there, and we let him do the guitar solo. And you know how Alan doesn't do what he wants. He does it atonal and just his own tune, improvised.
Yeah.
It was like a beautiful song, and then Alan just went in there and did this crazy off solo that just crushed everybody, which is hilarious to Zappa fans, but it probably confused everybody else watching it.
Yeah, definitely. You would have to be sort of pre-informed in the correct way to really fully get it.
Yeah, if you know Alan and his work, that's just crazy. One of the things I
You
wanted to
know,
wrap up.
we we
Yeah,
we played with Skunk Baxter,
yeah,
and Skunk Baxter joined the Eagles of Death Metal, and we did this show with him because, the Eagles of Death Metal, the way it's formatted is that it's the Special Forces of Rock, and occasionally we might have to call upon the greatest of the greatest to serve with Eagles of Death Metal. So when Skunk was playing with us, we were doing this show, and he was doing three of the solos. And literally, when he would go into his solo, the whole band had to fight the urge to stop and turn and look at him.
Oh yeah, that's great. That says a lot, though. That says a lot. Oh, your picture froze, but I can hear you. There you go. It was a good freeze, though. It wasn't like really weird, like your eye was like half closed or something. It was a good freeze on the for a minute on the camera.
Yeah, I don't know where that freeze came from either. That was odd.
But it was a good shot. The freeze, though, it was a really good one. Um, I know we've taken up a lot of time. I didn't really plan for this, but I want to thank you. But I do want to say, I do want one last thing, though. On a a little more on a serious note, I want to break. We had a good geek talk here, but you're been raising money, and there's a serious medical thing for your
For my
girlfriend, your
girl.
woman. Yeah. We can talk about it just briefly, just a little bit of awareness, and I want people where they can go and they can donate and help take care of this. Is very important.
Yeah, Tuesday's Army 22 on Instagram is our main outlet for information, and you can always go to my Instagram, Father Badass. But my girl had an asthma attack a year ago and was in triage, casually misdiagnosed by the receiving nurse, and that resulted in them stopping her heart, breaking her lungs, and then trying to pretend like it never happened. So we've had this struggle. I was told that she would never open her eyes again, that she would never recognize anyone, and that no matter what was employed, that she wouldn't live longer than 6 months. And here we are a year later. Her feeding tube has come out. Her breathing tube has come out. She's beginning to try to speak and walk on her own. She's trying to move her limbs. She recognizes everyone. She knows everyone. She's probably the toughest, most amazing person I've ever known in my life. And even after everything that's happened to her, when you walk into the room with her, she will smile at you. And when she smiles at you, it feels like the sun gets brighter. I don't know how really else to describe it, but um, basically, I went up against the medical system and I got to see the ugly reality of what happens when the medical system decides that you're trash. And I just am not having it. And the amount of rallying that's taken place, the fans, so to speak, who have come to the aid, you know, in the very beginning when she got hurt, they were getting ready to take her off life support and take her organs. And I had nothing that I could do, but I reached out to the fans and said, please call this hospital and tell them that you know who's there and that they need to take care of her. And thousands of people called this hospital. And that first effort of turning the spotlight on it saved her life. And I don't think that the fans, that the individuals will ever know how much I appreciated it. And I know that everyone did it without any hope of me knowing. So Tuesday is a demonstration of the best of community, so to speak, right now. And
The awareness you're bringing is so important. I mean, it doesn't get, and I'm going to say what people love love stories. This is the best love story. This is better than a Disney story. I mean, your love for her, the battle, is real love. This is what real love is.
She was
not.
at the Bataclan with me, man. And when the only reason I got out of that place is when I was trapped on that stage, I couldn't find her. I couldn't see her. And when I couldn't see her, this obsession immediately jumped into my head that I got to find her. And I didn't think I was going to live. I prayed and asked God, look, I'm not asking you to let me live. Just let me live long enough to get her out of here or to distract these fools. And when I finally found her, she was hiding between two of the bad guys' car, probably the worst place you could hide. But she hid there so that she could get a commanding view of everyone coming out because she wasn't going to leave me. And she didn't. And we found each other. And I'll be damned if I'm ever going to leave her, And watching this amazing fight of hers that she's winning, once you see it, you just want to help her win. That's really kind of the way it is. And every success that we have now has been fan financed, if you will. She's undergoing hyperbaric chamber treatment, which has been miraculous. And that has been almost entirely financed by the fans who were very like the legal fight that I had to put up to prevent the hospital from taking her off life support and taking her organs, was nearly $1 million effort. So when it came time for other funds, the response of the rock and roll community, because Tuesday's loved beyond me. She's an incredible bass player. She's an incredible artist and one of the funniest people in the world. Let me give you an anecdote of how funny she is. When the first Boots Electric album was coming out, I wanted to originally call it Raped by Miracles. And we were
Oh,
having this meeting at the label, and the label was like, dude, what's wrong with you? There's no way that we're ever going to be able to call this album that. And so Tuesday was in the office with us, and she goes, fine, fine. We'll call the album Raped by Bleep. And I'm like, yeah, miracles was the offensive word
that's a
here.
word.
Like that's, and she says it as serious as a heart attack. And it catches the whole room off guard. You know what I mean? That's, that's the girl she is. And it's going to be a long road for her to come back, but she's coming back. And, every penny has gone to helping her. So, uh, anything that anybody wants to even just get involved in, we appreciate it. So you can go to Tuesday's Army 22, which is the Instagram, or Father Badass, which is mine. And there's a GoFundMe account set up. We also have it so that the facility that she gets her hyperbaric chamber treatment, some of the fans have just been calling the center and buying her sessions. I mean, it's Tuesday's Army 15. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tuesday's Army 15. Tuesday's Army 15. I
I'm gonna put
almost
the
screwed
link. I'll
that
put
one
the
up
link up.
there.
The link will be underneath here anyhow. They can. I'm encouraging people to support it, and I think that's why I've been following along and how important this is. And I was hoping that maybe you were someone I want to talk to, but also it was just where you're at with this. I want to push it some more and give it some more light, and hopefully, you know, this can help get a little more attention also to some more
And
funds
just as a
to
little
help out.
insight into the things you think may not be possible or you may not ever expect, but she's unable to speak and unable to, move her hands and her arms. And yet, when we've had to go into hyperbaric chamber treatment because she can't speak, I have to go into the chamber with her. And when that door closes on that chamber and it seals and the pressure starts to build, you know, we've shared these beautiful moments together, she and she can't even speak. And the depth of emotion and the quality are so intense, but they're taking place while she's unable to even speak. My point is that communication and what the heart can communicate and bond over doesn't require words. It just requires action and time. And some of the time I've been spending with her has been invaluable and the most cherished moments of my life. And she's unable to even speak. And even in this condition, the best I've ever been in my life have been the past year in the endeavors that I've undertaken for her. It's made me the best person that I've been in my whole life. And I owe this to her when she can't even speak. You know what I mean? Like,
I
you
do.
have to be willing to see the things that are happening in front of you. And if you aren't, you won't.
I think if yeah, and better people, being around better people can actually sometimes bring out the better person in you that just didn't have the light or the air, and it's very clear that she's that to you, you know, that
She
she's
is, and
like
she's kicking ass. And I can't help but to think of all the people who've gone through something similar, but haven't had the resources that I have. The idea and thought of me to having to endure watching a medical system taking the life of your loved one and you can't do anything about it is something that I can't stomach. I just can't allow that going forward. So,
people need to be aware. I mean, this is a perfect example. Question things. Doctors aren't always right. Question them, and then question
and
them
and
again.
the one moment, a split second of a decision can truly devastate a life if it's not thought out. And you have to be on top of things. You can't trust anything when it comes to your loved ones. You have to be personally involved. You have to
Yeah.
be on it. Like I've had to gain a functional understanding of basic medicine so that I know what I'm hearing when I'm talking to these doctors, so that I'm not getting, cornswoggled.
Another good word. You talk like
I
I do.
love that word.
Hornswoggle. I like the word jibber jabber too. Not to get sidetracked from it, but jibber jabber is another good
No,
one.
jibber jabber. That's another word. And chin wag.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
I
we
like
could
chin
start our
wag.
own
Let's go
book.
have an old chin wag.
That's that's
Whenever my
like,
grandpa would say that, I would always think in my head, I get it. You're saying chin wag, grandpa, like it's like nothing meaningful, but I have a feeling these are going to be some very important words you're about to give to me.
that's like best guess. I mean, and that's sorry. I weave in and out, and not to take away how important this is. This is super important, and it's very. It just acts as a layer of how much
It
more.
doesn't take away how important it is. It's
No,
it's
no,
good to laugh,
it is, and
and
I think
even
appreciate
in the
that.
conversation about Tuesday, Tuesday
Yeah,
is it's to me it's joyful to undertake these endeavors. I
it's
can't
important.
imagine doing anything else
No,
ever.
it's very important. It's very important, and I think, and I hope, people see this and they enjoy the dorky musical talk we've had, and and then they also help out with Tuesday, and raise some money, and sometime maybe at some point you want to come back, we can do some deep record dives and geek out again. Um, and I really
Well, I
enjoy
want
it.
to get in on a conversation like between you, myself, and Joshua. I want to get like
Yeah,
I would love to come on your show in a powwow situation because uh, I love the discussions we've had. I'm a music fanatic, and
let's.
I'm a deep dive history dude, and
Uh,
I can tell you are too. So if you couldn't tell, I've been getting periodically and increasingly like enthusiastic and excited. Like, oh, dude, you know about this? Cool, we can talk
I
about
could.
this
I
too.
try
I
to keep on
love.
track because I've realized that though. Sorry, and I get excited. I talk over someone. I realize that some shows I've gone so I can go so far and I'll lose somebody because I'm like, I'm sorry, because I'm like, I love to banter about the really deep. Let's go deep. You know what I mean? It's exciting.
I think we all do. That's why that movie with Jimmy Page, The Edge, and Jack White was so
Yeah,
popular because they just sit down and talk, and it's what you're able to, what's revealed during the time of this interaction, which is so precious and valuable. That's why we love them. You know what I
it's the
mean?
unspoken part.
It's
You actually said that movie. The first thing I thought about was this is going to get loud. That's the movie I thought of when you first before you even said what it was. That's the movie I thought about. Like I felt like that's what
yeah,
you're going to say because it's.
yeah. That is the movie I was talking about.
I know that's what I'm saying. It's perfect. I thought that when you said I envisioned it totally on the
See,
same wavelength on it.
this is what I'm talking about, baby.
I know. Let's
I
do it.
love you immediately.
Well, it's a mutual thing. Let's you seem to put a schedule together. Talk to him. We'll do it. I'd love to go deep dive on this with you and him.
I'm going to talk to him right after I get off the phone with you. And I also just want to say, because I'm very proud of this, but I just raced in the Mint 400 and we called the car Tuesday's Army. And for the first time in the history of the Mint 400, which is the race from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the one with
Yeah,
Johnny Depp, we won. And I was a
really.
driver. It's never happened in the history of the race. And we won. Tim Montana
Congrats.
was my teammate. And dude, talk about full circle Evil Knievel stuff right there, dude. It's like Road Warrior. That race is like Road Warrior, and to actually have, uh, I was just so focused in the zone. I had this moment of driving where, and I don't know how else to describe it, but that's the only way I know how to describe what happened out there in that vehicle with my
You should have
navigator.
gone live. You should have gone live on Instagram for those of us who could never experience it.
Well, I'm putting together a reel, so it will be like a first person, but it's a 97. Each driver does 97-mile lap, and you are
Wow.
out in the middle of nowhere, and only 20% of the vehicles that enter the race even finish. So I did the last lap. So on that final 30 miles, it's just burning carcasses of cars.
What were you driving? I'm not a super car guy, but what were you driving to do that?
It's basically like a Formula One dune buggy. More people have
Okay.
gone into outer space and have driven it. When I get off this with you, I'm going to send you a couple of videos
Oh,
that
please.
show you the car, and it's the winner's circle too, like that moment. And I dedicated my trophy win to everybody that ever took my lunch money.
That's the best revenge, and I love the fact that and this is the best revenge for people that have been bullied. You push through, you will survive, and you can do better, because usually the bullies. I remember the bullies now. I was bullied too, but not probably. But the point is, I see them now. They're not. They're not where you thought they were going to be.
No,
And
they're not.
generally,
And
you surpass them
when
in
I got
love
bullied
or
quite a
whatever.
bit, and it's informed a lot of my records. Our first record, when I was in seventh and eighth grades, these two bullies would constantly bully me about you can't tell if he's a boy or a girl. So I was
I
like,
got that
okay, so
too.
our first album is Pink and Baby Blue. There you go, Emmer effer. You don't know? Well, figure this out. That's cool.
Yeah. And it's but it's important. I can relate to that because I was a skinny, long-haired guy with earrings and rocker, and but not a lot of rockers. Also, you see it now. You're not part of a community. You're just you know you don't fit in. But you've stood up
Yeah,
for yourself, and those people now that used to make fun of me are like, I see them and they're like, oh hey, how you doing? Oh, that's cool. Like I'm like, you didn't care back then. You know, it's not a big deal. Like I don't have to be a jerk
right.
about it because I know because I'm past that, or you've seen their lives fail a million times over because they thought they were going to be this thing, and it's not about being vindictive. It's like being true to yourself and just being who you were, and not being mean to
In a
people.
way, and I've had former bullies come up to me and say similar things, but in a way, I smile and I'm always graced about it because in my head I'm thinking, you know what? Whether I wanted you to or not, you actually informed some of my songwriting, and
Right.
so in that respect, I will give credit where credit's due.
Have you ever
And
had anyone
people
do like
change.
apologize? Like I've had that. They say, "I'm sorry," and that can be important too because how they see things and what's going on in their life, they can be abused or picked on. And they're doing it as a thing as a child. How you react is differently. And if they say,
I accept those apologies.
I totally do because I get it. I get it. I mean, I was never like that. I didn't ever remember that, but I understand. I'm like, I understand, and absolutely, that's
I'm
cool, and I get
also
it.
honest about the fact that I was weird when I was a kid, so I kind of
It
get
makes you a
it
target.
too.
I know, but it's a weird society though. But if you can, everybody can acknowledge it. We got through it. There's a healing process across the whole thing. It is kind of cool in a dorky sort of way, you know.
Well, it's all of that adversity that made us better. My grandmother always said that when you ask God for help, He sends you trouble, and that is in a very serious way very true. Every trouble that I've gone through has prepared me for something. If it weren't for Paris, I would never have been in the preparation to fight for Tuesday the way I did. I don't think I ever could have done it. And so I've had these weird moments where I found myself being grateful, which seems impossible, but grateful for what I went through, because if it weren't for that, I would never have had the ability to muscle a fight. Because I'll tell you this, whatever happened in Paris is one thing, but it ain't got nothing on what I've gone through with the medical community. Nothing.
I
The
think
terror that I've felt passively at the hands of just doctors is Paris ain't got nothing on that.
well, you're helpless in a way. Paris, you could run. You felt like you still had something.
I know where the enemy was, and they whether or not
Right.
I'm not saying I admire them for this, but at least they had the balls to let me know they hated me. And but when someone's under the guise of being your servant or being there to truly assist you in the preservation of life, and you can tell that's the last thing they want to do, that becomes it's a gut punch in and of itself.
Yeah, it is, and there's so much out there that's like that. It's insane. It is. You know, I think it's important that people. I want people to go back. I can't. I'm gonna post some of my socials too. Some of this stuff, the fundraiser stuff to the people to check out and support. So
Awesome,
I'll
brother.
post it.
Thank you, dude.
Well, it's very important. I mean, I think it's important. A lot of things we talk about are important, but the most important is helping get Tuesday back to full capacity health again. Um, and the other takeaway is people is just music is music, and there's no guilty music, and we love music and enjoy life.
People use music to heal and to escape and to recover, and
Right.
it's a beautiful thing the way the music world is helping Tuesday to do the same, and that's why I look forward to when Tuesday and I are having a discussion with you.
I would love that. I'd be honored. I would be honored. Um, I want to thank you for the show. Obviously, we'll do more. This is hopefully it's the beginning of something because I love deep
Oh,
dive.
I'm your loyal asset as well as your fan. So
I love it.
just think of it that way.
Thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me, dude. And I
Okay,
needed
okay.
this. So thank you very much.
How much?